The Panthers taking the nation, a prototype for a new generation is what you face with Cam Newton as the quarterback, Tom Brady and the others. They don't want none of that. That Superman with the shoulder pads. Best believe he's the best in the league, the best that you have. To watch a kid go and dab on him, spread his wings out, run around the field while they grab on him. The league's freaking out.
What is up, Panther fans? It's your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn, and this is the C3 podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. That's Panthers Ball. It is a fan-created song. It's fantastic. You can download it on iTunes. Check out Ant Beat Productions on Twitter and hook you up with that. I'm here with my brother from another mother, Joe Riolano, a.k.a. that freaking Puerto Rican. What's going on, brother?
Tony, it is a terrific Tuesday night, and it is time to talk Panthers football. I am ready. Surprisingly, I'm ready because there's not a whole lot going on with the Panthers, but it's who we have on the show tonight that I'm most excited about. Mr. Sean Williams from PFS Pro Football Spot. He is the division editor. He is the lead analyst for the NFC Sout, and I don't know if you can tell, but he's a Saints fan. We've had
welcome to the show, Sean. Let me ask you this: how does it feel to be, since you're the division editor, to be just essentially a cheerleader for the Carolina Panthers?
Well. It's a lot more fun to not be. I'll put it that way.
There you go. Good answer. That's a great answer. Folks, let me tell you, you want a good read. Sean just put out something. He collaborated with another writer there at a Pro Football Spot. And it's sort of, I don't want to say taboo, because it's not taboo, but it's something that most people in the NFL probably don't want so much attention brought to, but Sean did a really good job, along with this fellow writer, bringing two particular, very specific injuries up. Sean, maybe I'll let you talk about it a little bit more.
Sure.
And make sure to tell people where they can find your work, and
Okay. I collaborated with another writer for Pro Football Spot named Jack Papansky, and we put together this probably going to wind up being a 3 to 4 part series on knee injuries and concussions and how they're potentially going to affect the game moving forward, as well as a brief look back on the way that they've affected the way that the game is played now. The piece that you're talking about was basically an introduction to the series. It came out yesterday morning, and I've been really pleased with the feedback that I've gotten from it. I'm really proud of the way that things have turned out with.
Fantastic. When we jump in, let's go ahead and just jump into the show real quick and talk a couple of things. Is to introduce the episode tonight. Tonight's episode is, I think I called it Sinners, Saints, and Carolina Winners. This is episode 16.6. We're going to continue to follow free agency and continue to focus on the Panthers, but we've been trying to look around the division to highlight what other teams in our division, and then we'll branch out later. That's why we brought Sean on from Pro Football Spot to talk with the Saints. Sean, if you could tell them before we get started how they can follow you on Twitter.
I am at Drew's Dad 3721.
And Drew's dad turns out to be a Saints fan. Poor fella. Okay. Just to go over a couple of things for the Panthers news tonight. I think right now we have extended Star Latulele. We've used the 5th-year option. I think this was pretty much seen as a no-brainer. That's what you do with the 5th-round pick who's playing well. you extend them, you get another year. Sounds like we're focusing on K1 Short, which we have been we've known has been the top priority for Dave Gettleman, and really for us here, we're happy to see that. But also now things have started to slow down even more with Josh Norman. Joey, Josh Norman, it just looks like it's going to be tag the deal. I don't know if it's going to get done, and then he's going to sit out OTAs and anything that's voluntary to prevent any type of injury. Joey, what do you think about the continued Josh Norman story? Is it going normal as usual? Because this week he's gotten some negative feedback from fans, I guess, for this type of move.
Well, I was looking at what Gettleman is saying, and Gettleman said that they want to get a deal done with Josh. Gettleman is not in the business of drafting and building talent only to see him turn around and walk away. At the same time, he has to do what's best in the interest of the Carolina Panthers, not just Josh Norman. Yes, Josh Norman wants to be paid. Who doesn't? But we can't break the bank on one player and then give up, one or two other players. I think it's a matter of sharing the wealth, if you would. The deal will get done, I believe. It's just going to get done when it gets done. And he will sit out OTAs. He will sit out anything voluntary for injury's sake. And I can't blame him. But at the same time, I don't blame Dave Gettleman for not going up and saying, here's $17 million a year.
Right. Well, that's not going to happen. Yeah, he's not worth that. Sean, from the outside looking in, how do you see Josh Norman as a priority money-wise in this free agency market? We've extended the franchise tag, and we're having trouble reaching terms with him. What do you think he's worth as an outsider? He's 29 years old. He's had really a season and a half of good play, one season of great play. Sean, what do you think? What would you guys do if you were what would you want the Saints to do if it was you in this situation?
Well, listening to what you had to say, I can draw a few parallels between that and the situation with Breeze. Only we're not franchise tagging Breeze, but from what you said, the deal, it's a foregone conclusion that the deal is going to get done. It's just a matter of every day that goes by, more and more people getting nervous that there isn't a deal in place, if that makes any sense. As far as Norman, like you said, from an outsider looking in perspective, I looked at Norman as one of the most important pieces of your puzzle on defense.
Right. I think the problem with Norman, and this is what I think somebody who brought it up last week, it was JP. We were talking, Joey, in the draft guide meeting, and he said it's just something kind of messed up about Josh Norman getting more money than Luke Kuechly.
Well, you can't hold that against Norman, though.
Right.
These guys have such a... And I hate to lump them all into one category, but, these guys, part of it's on them, but part of them's on the agents that they have working for them. And you can't blame these guys. They have such a short window of opportunity to, quote-unquote, make their money. You can't blame them for wanting to make full use of every moment that they have.
Oh, I agree with that. It's just that you almost wonder if people should have done a better job.
Absolutely. I think that just goes to show you the kind of people and players and team player that they are, the two differences. You got Luke Kuechly, who probably had every right to earn more money, realized for the good of the team, let me take less.
Sure,
I don't think it was that. I think, Joey, you're making him out to be too much of
I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. That's just the kind of guy that he is. No, I'm not saying...
I think he's significantly younger, too.
To speak further to that, there again, the parallel between that and Breeze, what you're looking at Breeze doing right now is more than likely going to wind up being taking a cut in pay to stay in New Orleans and finish out his career there.
Well, and he doesn't want to do it on an 0-16 team. So
Sure.
he realizes, hey, let me take less money for us to be able to go and get better players. So
let me ask you this: should you guys have traded? Why don't you guys trade Breeze?
To be totally frank and honest with you, I don't think that you're going to find anybody that's going to take on that deal and give you anything for it.
What is the deal right now for a Breeze? Like what? Like where's he at?
Tony, I want to say it's like 20 a year.
Yeah,
I know
that's right. I think that's right, 20.
And for
that's not that bad. It's just the guaranteed
for
the dead money
the third oldest quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
That's potential. Of course, everybody is potentially, but the older they get, the more significant it becomes. Potentially one hit away from his career being over. You're not going to get anybody that represents a valid threat to the championship to take on a deal like that. I can't see it happening. There was a lot of suggestions and rumors floating around last year during free agency that nobody was safe, so to speak, and everybody was trade bait. Of course, subsequently during the season, they said Breeze was never a part of that, but you never know.
Right. If the right deal will come along.
In a perfect world, Breeze is going to finish out his career in New Orleans, right off into the sunset, and la-di-da. But at the end of the day, and look, with guys over the past couple of seasons, guys like Pierre Thomas, Marcus Colston, Lance Moore, these guys, you always have the one thing that you always have to keep in mind, and that I have to remind myself from time to time, the name on the front of the jersey is always got to be more important than the one on the back.
Absolutely.
If you're a follower,
you're not gonna believe this number. Drew Brees counts $30 million against the cap.
I thought that's what it was.
I knew it was between 20 and 30.
He's gonna take a cut, obviously.
Well, what if he just did this?
The precipice behind them redoing the deal now to take less of a hit on the cap and extend it out over another couple of years.
Right.
If you know what I would do is if I was Denver, I wouldn't be surprised if John Elway trades for him. And what if John Elway just every year tries to get a 40-year-old quarterback to win the damn Super Bowl?
The last two Super Bowls have been won.
I don't even like looking at this
Super Bowls have been won by the only two quarterbacks in the league that are older than Drew Brees.
So it's his time. Send him to Denver, and it's his time? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. I don't want to have to bring Mayflower into this equation.
Okay. Other news, let me see, in Panthers Nation, which isn't very much this week, Joey. We signed a dude from...
The Redskins.
Yeah, the Redskins. Let me see what his name is. And safety. Trenton. That sounds right. Here, I got it somewhere. There's really no moves. We got Trenton Robinson.
Robinson, yeah.
So that's about as exciting as it gets.
He's a safety. He's played 7 games, I think I read last year. Got an interception. Got hurt, so ended up getting released. But really, I think Dave is bringing him in for special teams play. Of course, there's going to be some more competition at the safety spot, but I really see him coming in as a special teamer.
All right,
that's typical Dave Gettleman move.
We've talked so much about the Panthers. I really don't have very much to say about them at the moment, other than that we're signing our guys from the inside out. So let's turn. This is why we brought Sean on to the show. Let's go ahead and look at the Saints. We'll talk first free agency and then we'll move to like what you guys need in the draft. All right. You've kept your head coach. No trade for Sean Payton. Drew Brees is still there. The Saints haven't looked very well though from my perspective when it comes to the actual composition of their roster. So
yeah.
how have you guys worked in free agency so far to start to improve that? Really, what just looked to be a very haphazard roster with very little. It just didn't look like it had any continuity, any direction, any
To
feel
be totally
to it.
honest with you, in my mind, my perspective, my opinion, going into free agency, the number one priority for me was offensive line. You had to replace an All-Pro in Jari Evans, and
Mm-hmm.
that has yet to be addressed. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, you get a deal that you have an opportunity at with a player like Kobe Fleener. You can't afford to walk away from that, especially in light of Benjamin Watson going to Baltimore.
Now that you brought this subject up, Sean, I want to ask you: is that a wash, or are you better because you got a little bit younger at the
Are
position?
you mean with Watson?
With Watson
Yeah,
and
Fleener.
Fleener,
Yeah,
yeah.
Fleener.
I believe that we got a little better. I would speak nothing ill against Ben Watson. He's the consummate professional, great guy, and all that. But if I read the signs correctly, the New Orleans Saints never even made a play for him. More than likely due to his age and what he might have left in the tank. I
Man, he
honestly
had
believe
some big games last year.
he did.
You know
But
He
what?
had,
That was really his first. That was really the only year that I remember him being. He
it
had
was.
his best season last year as a pro. He had
mm-hmm.
800. He had 825 yards on 74 catches. Prior to that, his best season looks to have been 2010 with the Cleveland Browns, 68 catches for 763 yards. You know, he really didn't look to have a very big role or a role in the Saints offense prior to this season. He comes
He
out
didn't
those.
because he was in a backup role till this season. He
Right.
played
Behind
behind Jimmy
Jimmy
Graham.
Graham.
So
Right.
I think that he is, just to let you know, Joey, he is older than I am. Holy cow. He's 35 years old. So
Wow. So
Kobe
that's it.
Fleener, that's it.
And that's
Kobe
it. He's
Fleener
done.
is 7 years younger. He
Okay.
is 1980. He's 27. So that is something. But once again, what about this is, in many ways, you just got another unproven tight end. He's had a lot of catches with the Colts. How do you like this? It seems like your offense does thrive when you have an effective tight end
Sure.
running down the seam.
I
How
think
does
if
this
you
help
look
you
back,
guys from last year?
I think if you look back over recent history, Drew Brees is a quarterback. I mean, there's no more adjectives left that haven't been said about him. But
Right.
when the offense that he is in charge of, when it has an effective tight end, he manages to make that player that much better. Because coming in, Jimmy Graham was a basketball player, and
Yes.
Brees took him to the next level. Like you just pointed out with Watson. Watson was a reserve player
Right.
until last year, and Drew showed what he could do. I was really shocked because I figured of the two, I thought it would be Josh Hill that stepped up, but I guess it could be an argument made for Watson didn't let him have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
But
I'll say.
I really think that Fleener is going to thrive in our offense.
Well, we know he is a capable receiver, playing with Andrew Luck. You know,
Sure.
I think didn't they play in college together?
Yeah, they were roommates in college at Stanford.
Yeah, so they have. I'm sure the rapport that they had was a very strong one, and Breeze being the professional that he is, I'm sure could establish something with Fleener pretty quick, and you're gonna see Fleener take on that more, I guess a receiver role, like Graham was. Not that
I
Watson
like the
wasn't.
Fleener. I like the Fleener deal. He's young. He's athletic.
Athletic, that's the thing.
He's smart. I mean, all those guys that play for Stanford, they're smart.
Yeah.
They're not just intelligent. They have football IQ too.
Yes.
And I'm anxious to see what he can do away from Luck now that I've seen what he can do with him.
Right.
And I think
he was starting to trend up to when in 2014, and Indy was a better team then. Obviously, and they weren't great that year. 2013 was their best year, and he looked to he's trended up until last year where the whole team did poorly.
Yeah.
If you take 2015 off the board, he had 51 catches for 775 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's an effective weapon. That's a productive weapon, and particularly a red zone threat.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really where that helps you guys? You lost Colston is old and he's gone, and nobody knows it because he doesn't talk. And then
I believe that you're absolutely right on that. There were a lot of people last year that just railed against Graham being traded because that was our red zone threat. Well, he was a prima donna, and the only thing wrong with trading Graham was that it was a year too late.
Right.
But that's another subject for another time. If you give Breeze a body, and he can turn it into a receiver, and I hate to make it sound that trivial.
No, he's that good. He's that good.
His knowledge, his ability, his competitive nature makes the guys around him up their game to a new level.
It's okay to say that Drew Brees makes other players better. It's okay to say that. Yeah.
I've been told that I walk a fine line between being an accurate portrayer of what is actually there and a homer. So I try to.
I think what I would say though when it comes to Drew Brees talking about that is that that was the case for certain 3 years ago. He has still carried that team, but over the last 2 years, I feel like Breeze has looked mortal.
I believe that over the past 2 seasons, these 2 7-9 seasons back to back, he's looked mortal because the supporting cast around him has let him down.
And the offensive line has been bad for 2 years.
Now let's talk about Let's talk about the real problem. It's not offensive line, guys. It's not on the offense that's the real problem.
Yeah.
Defense.
It's y'all's defense. You haven't had a top 15 defense ever, I don't think.
To my knowledge, never in the Sean Payton era. No.
Right.
But
all right.
When you have the type of offense that we had 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that's less noticeable. Now, when those offensive numbers begin to come down to human levels and look average with everybody else, and you don't have that defense, and it turns into a scoring competition, or what I call a track meet, then that's when things that have long been problems start to become glaring problems.
Right. Well, let's talk about this defense specifically. Is that you guys, reports are that you've met with Nick Fairley. You need a defensive tackle, and you signed Laurinaitis. And the only thing other than I know about that he was a Ram was his dad was Animal from Legion of Doom.
Road Warriors.
Oh, that's what it was. Road Warriors.
Same guys. They just changed their name.
Okay. They did change. So it was originally Legion of Doom?
Well, it was Road Warriors, and then I think went to Legion of Doom.
Okay. All right.
But either way, same guys.
He's my favorite.
I have a DVD
animal.
set on him. I'll have to share with you guys sometime.
Are you a wrestling guy?
Oh man, that doesn't even do it justice to call me that.
Oh well, we'll have to keep up with Mel.
I went to WrestleMania 32 in New Orleans. I've actually met Laurinaitis' dad.
Oh, okay.
Cool. He coached him up. He coached him up one time.
Did he?
He's just a few inches taller than me, but he's a few feet wider than me.
Yeah, I bet.
He is a mountain of a guy.
I bet.
All right. So Nick Fairley, is this? What are you guys thinking here? Tell us about Laurinaitis and that bringing Laurinaitis in and potentially acquiring Nick Fairley.
Well, with Laurinaitis, I'm kind of at a loss here. There's something peculiar about all of this, and I'm sure it's got to do with the cap and all of that voodoo that Mickey Loomis takes part in every year about this time. But Laurinaitis officially isn't even on our books yet. So I have no insight whatsoever as to the deal that they signed him to.
Okay.
And as far as Fairley, if I had to venture a guess, I would say that he is probably going to be beyond our reach for that same monetary reason.
Okay. What are you guys in that bad a shape right now because of?
As I understand it, yeah. But because see, we still, as I understand it, we have still yet to do the Breeze deal.
Yeah, you guys are actually $7 million over the cap.
Well, that's better than what I thought.
Oh. You're pleasantly surprised at that.
Yeah. It's all smoke and mirrors, man.
Yeah.
It's juggling numbers and what counts, what doesn't. I never even have pretended to understand that stuff completely. I just kind of go, okay, is he on the roster? Okay, well, we can go with that. The business side of the business, I'm trying desperately to learn more, but when it comes to the salary cap, I get a cap at a Newgate look real quick.
Right. Okay, so you got Laurinaitis. Is he a name or is he a player? Because it seems like a lot of people are saying he's still a name.
Well, the jury seems to be out on that in the nation. There's a lot of people that didn't want us to touch him, but I think he can be a difference maker on that defense. He has some experience that could be helpful to Stephon Anthony moving forward. He's a very physical player. And I think the combination of the two of them in the middle and possibly Donnell Ellerbe and Kakaha on the outside with their ears pinned back, I think that could be pretty effective. And
yeah, I think that what he lacks bringing on the field, he'll make up for in the locker room. You know what I mean? Good locker room guy who's been a professional now for several years. He'll be able to show Anthony.
To be totally honest with you guys, that is something that over the past 2 seasons, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that is something that has been terribly lacking in New Orleans.
Okay.
It's leadership.
Leadership
on defense. Now, you got Drew Brees, obviously, but Drew Brees ain't going to be the leader of the defense.
Right.
Well,
and
all right, so let me ask you about that with the locker room presence, because it seems like you've put your finger on a pulse of something important with that. One of the things we haven't seen is that the offensive side, where these guys seem to have had so much going on together for so long, that almost like character hasn't flowed over to the defensive side. I mean, this is going all the way back to, and we're not going to talk about, but the Bounty Gate stuff, but that was a defensive side of the ball issue. Then you get, you get now, who was the guy that, and I should know his name because I watched the YouTube video like 800 times of him whipping that chick on the beach.
Junior Gillette.
Junior Gillette. He put what was that? What's that recent movie, Joey, with about the slave that seeks retribution? Django. He put a dang Django Unchained whipping on that girl on the beach. It did. It was so brutal, man. Like it was terrible. And then you get Cameron Jordan, who is now, I believe, having a little back surgery from what I heard. It's not anything new. These guys, again, he like sprayed champagne on some chick at a bar, which that's like very tame for New Orleans. You know,
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't really got a problem with that. But why is this? It really seems to be a systemic problem, like you're putting on leadership. How do you even turn something like that around?
Well, you turn it around by
one,
shipping him off to the Redskins, which is what they did.
Step one, Gillette has been relocated to the Redskins, as Joey just said.
Yes.
Step two, you got a change in leadership. You got Dennis Allen as the coordinator now, and not
a joke, just a kind of joke.
Joke.
I feel like I do. I feel like this, and this look is that hey, that dude knows more in his pinky thumb. What was it? What was his name? Joe? Rob Ryan. He knows more about football probably in his pinky finger than I do. So I'm not saying he's a joke on just football, but when your personality and your appearance overtake your contribution,
it's a circus.
Joke. Yeah,
it's a circus act, and
he's Huey Kingfish Long. He's the Huey Kingfish Long of
being more to the point. When you're a circus act, you're a distraction.
Right.
Yes. Wow, that's a great point, Sean.
This game these days, anything from the very smallest, most minute detail to the biggest, most incredible issue, if it's a distraction, it takes away from what you're putting on the field every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't afford that if you're wanting to succeed. There is such parity between teams in this league right now that the margin for error is almost non-existent, in my opinion. And I think Rob Ryan was a distraction. Did he have success here? Marginally initially, yeah. But the further that it went, the less that the fan base respected him. And if the fan base don't respect him, how do you think that the players are going to respect him? And how effective is his leadership going to be?
Right. He definitely didn't ingratiate himself with the Saints fans there toward the end. I know there were Saints fans that were screaming for him to be gone before the year was over.
Now, I was never one of the screaming masses saying, fire him now, please. But looking back over the Sean Payton era, I would say that easily two of the most embarrassing losses of this team's history occurred last season, primarily due to defensive failure against Philadelphia and against Washington. Those games were so humiliating.
That Washington game was like...
that they lost, is that right?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't that a 28-point lead they gave up?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
and
to the Redskins. Yeah.
It's one thing for you to sit at being such a rabid follower of your team. It's one thing to sit there and you watch them play, and they go out there and they get beat. Sooner or later that happens. Every team is as good as every other team in this league, and anybody can beat anybody. But to go out and watch them fire a dud like they did on those two Sundays, it physically made me ill. And
it was 47 to 14 Redskins at home. That was a shellacking, and I think that was November 15th. That may have been the week after, Joe, that we put the beat down on the Redskins.
No, it was the week before.
Oh, okay. I knew it was right around that time. Another didn't like Tampa. Well, maybe it was Tampa. Did Tampa go beat Atlanta after something like that, or did they beat you guys pretty? There was one game I feel like Tampa surprised one of the NFC South teams. It was either Atlanta. It must have been Atlanta at home.
We played Tampa, I want to say week 2 maybe.
Okay.
And they beat us, I forget, touchdown or two maybe. And then at the end of the season, we beat them. But we swept Atlanta.
that makes for a good year right there.
Here. Let me just say, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that I hate Atlanta the most out of anybody
I find
in
that
the NFC
really
South.
hard to believe.
I really don't. The Saints don't bother me as much as the Falcons do.
Yeah.
And I almost forget that Tampa Bay exists until like two people remind me. One is J.C. Del Torre. Every now and then shows up. That's Joey's favorite. And the other is my buddy C.W. So it must
I'll
have
tell
been.
you guys what. I've been watching this off season and seeing some. I'm not covering it the way that I did last year. Last year I was covering the getting ready for the draft, and I was doing like probably 4 articles a week of player profiles and what have you. So I got to take a step back away from that this year and just kind of watch it all unfold. And one of the teams that I've been watching that may definitely be into making some noise this year, Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
They've been gathering their weapons.
They have been spending money. That's for sure.
Well, they had to. They had to. Okay, yeah. They did have to. They had. I mean, they had a lot of money, and they do have some. They've had some talent on that. The question again is, are the moves? They did make a lot of moves on defense, and and they got a sexy what was it? The Malik Jackson.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. They are bringing in Monty Kiffin to help as like a special defensive advisor.
Of how to play defense. How to play defense 2 decades ago.
Well, he's the guy. He's the guy that taught Sean McDermott everything he knew.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and really, defense is not as hard as we make it out to be.
It's really not. Find the ball
get after the quarterback. Stop the run.
Key. That's the key.
I'll tell you guys. I'll be honest with you. What happened in New Orleans, I know this past season, but probably the season before as well. I've always subscribed to the theory that your game is either won or lost at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. As an offense, if you can't dictate your will on the defense and control that line of scrimmage, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to score points. Vice versa, if you're on defense and you cannot pressure the quarterback, it makes no difference whatsoever who you have in the defensive backfield. Yeah. Because at this level, they are talented enough. Even the worst quarterback in the NFL is going to be able to pick you apart if you give him enough time to do so.
Yeah.
So you asked earlier about the draft. I've got my eye on who I hope that we can make a play for in the first round at number 12 is Shaq Lawson.
Who makes the call? Who makes the call in New Orleans? You think about because historically you just haven't drafted defense well, right? Is that you guys haven't had very much luck in adding pieces that have been able to stick around and make a difference. And I don't know if it's just been that you guys haven't done it, haven't tried, or you're just bad at it. But who makes the call? Is it Loomis? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, Mickey Loomis.
GM Loomis.
Or is it? I mean, like Sean Payton. Does Sean Payton not even look at defensive players because there's a lot. There's a lot of D tackles in this one that you could. I mean, you guys could draft like 4 real good defensive players this year, and that's it.
To be honest with you, I keep using that phrase. I think last year's draft was probably one of the best of the Sean Payton era. We got Stephon Anthony. Of course, we had that stockpile of draft picks going in, so. The law of averages says we're going to hit on something. But really, we got Pete in the first round. We got Anthony in the first round. Both of those were successes, I believe. Of course, with an offensive lineman, you're not going to see the real turnover for a good season or two until they fully make the transition into the league, which is why I would much rather have seen us make a play for a guard in free agency, because you get more of a proven product and you get it in a quicker turnaround time. You got somebody that's proven they can play at this level, and you don't have to wait for them to make the transition into the league.
Like an Evan Mathis kind of guy.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody like that.
You know, you're not just going to grab somebody out of a lineup and throw them in there and get what you had with Jari Evans, regardless of what type of season that he had last year.
What happened to him?
If you listen to the scuttlebutt going around, last year he reworked his deal and basically took a pay cut to stay with the team. And reportedly, they asked him to do the same going into this year, and he refused, so they cut him.
What can you do?
Well, you can't blame the team for trying to do what they have to do, but you can't blame, as I said earlier, you can't blame the player for wanting to make the most of it. And I feel like he'll have a job.
I always root for the player trying to make loot. Like, I mean, I know that you don't want to sacrifice your organization's health for it, but if you are a player have you ever gone to a football game and you spent like $400 when it comes to tickets and parking, and then you go up to get a beer and you're like $4 short? Have you ever gone like, well, you know what, we're going to make a fan-friendly deal with you today?
No.
And, you know, so screw you. I mean, at the same time, like, I always feel like this is, why do you got to give me shit? Because I get a lot of shit from other Panther fans, like, whenever I'm not happy, like, only smiling in the whole experience, when nobody puts me first in the whole thing. Like, I go and spend all this money there. I don't go there and get there'll be the popcorn and be like, hey, fan-friendly popcorn today. None of that. So if I'm a player, I'm taking every dollar, and I'm buying Tony a beer at the game.
And you look at you think of it from another perspective. As a player, this is a job you've been training for since basically what, 3rd, 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
You've put all of that, all those years of work and time and everything else, not to mention knee surgeries to repair you, the whole shooting match. You've done all of that to prepare to make a living. Why don't you deserve to get the most that you can get?
It's a negotiation. The market dictates it all. So you never overpay a player. You just pay him what you paid him. And if you're either happy with your deal or you're unhappy with it.
And you know, that's how it is for the first. If they're fortunate enough to play 6 years, 7 years, but then they get to the end of their career and they're like, you know, I made all this money, but what's my legacy in the league? You know, I've made $100 million, but I've never been in the playoffs. You know,
sure.
I've never been on a team that won the division.
All right, okay. Are we really walking down this road, Joey?
No, I'm just saying.
Because I'm just saying this is that Sammy Bradford.
There you go, the rapist, serial rapist.
Versus some regular left guard on the Denver Broncos this past year. Is his legacy worth $70 million?
No, and that's not. And what I'm, like I said, you know, they'll play for whatever their first few, 6, 7 years and make buku's money. But there's going to come a point in time where they're going to be like, I've made all this money, but I was never part of a championship, whether it be a division championship, a conference championship, or Super Bowl championship. Look at Tim Brown. Think of all the guys that have had illustrious careers and made plenty of dough, but never saw a championship game. That's where that give and take hey, I'll take a little bit less money if we can make the team better and give me a better shot at a title. That's
Up until
how
Drew
that's
Brees,
me. That's me.
I know,
up
but
until
think about it the other way though. What about the regular dude who kind of sucks and is never going to get paid and never gets a Super Bowl? Like, I mean, should they just go ahead and off themselves?
No, and of course you're talking about
Sean was just yelling at somebody.
yeah, crowd control, man.
Okay, all right. How about this, Joey? Check this out. You guys brought up Jacksonville Jaguars. Panther Nation on YouTube says, "Be cool to see Jags versus Panthers Super Bowl since the history, the two teams, coming in the same way. It would be cool. It would be cool. That is a great sentiment. Come into the league, have this, and then Team Money is just like, no." Stupid Team Money. All right, let's get back to the Saints in this. So you need a lot of defensive help. You've got some linebacker help. Really, what do you guys have? Where do you have anything going for you right now? Team Money says Pete looks good. I mean, he looks like a huge damn redwood tree. He's just a giant man. But do you guys have enough pieces on either side of the ball to be any good?
Well, I'd like to think so, but if it doesn't translate onto the field any better this coming season than it did last season, it doesn't help.
Well, let's ask you this, Sean. How are you better than you were last year right now?
Oh, that's a good question, Joe.
Are you better?
Okay. On offense, the players that we had thrown together last year, we had new people all over the place. We had Snead in as a receiver. Mm-hmm. We had due to injuries, we were shuffling offensive linemen in and out constantly. I think that there was a continuity established on both sides of the ball. Actually, we used a lot more new faces on defense than we did on offense. But they got some time to play together and to learn some chemistry amongst themselves. I think that should make a big difference going forward.
That goes a long way. We can attest to that as Panther fans because when you get those same 5 guys working together week after week after week, you can really tell a difference. It really makes a big difference.
I never like to use the quote-unquote excuse about injuries killed our season because you got too many guys out there. If one player getting hurt causes your season to go down the tubes, you didn't have a season to begin with.
Right.
But at the same time, sometimes injuries pile up, which for us on defense they did last year.
And you guys weren't that good anyway. So when you have a defense that is all right, let's just cut it straight. That defense was only so good, and then when they're hit by injuries, then you're already, and that's really hard it's hard for a good defense or any good team to overcome. And then when you're on that moderate to low level, it's all over.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. And like we were talking about earlier, against teams that are always the last ones that you think would show you, against teams like Washington, Philadelphia. Going into these games, these teams were really not good at all, and they handed our behinds to us. And they did it with reserve running backs, backup quarterbacks, and all that.
You're right.
And then we go into Carolina and play the team that's going to represent our conference in the Super Bowl, and it comes down to one play at the end of the game.
And play lights out. Yeah, with the backup quarterback.
That shit was a great-ass play, by the way, at the end of the game.
It was.
And it did come down to one play, and I would say this is that the Panthers played flat in that game. No Luke Kuechly, I believe, at that point in the season. While you guys didn't have Drew Brees, he was so banged up that having McCown in there wasn't necessarily a bad. You guys played a good game. that week.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to take anything away from that Saints performance. The Panthers played poorly, but you guys played well. And what you did, one thing that you never do well, is run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's something you don't do enough of.
Right.
Surely.
All right. Are you happy with Mark Ingram there in that capacity?
Yeah, no, maybe, kind of.
What happened to him last year? He had a good year 2 years ago, and then he tailored off again last year. Was it
honest, they scrapped him early to keep him from getting hurt. I honestly believe that.
Oh, protecting him. There's your talent,
I really think that. And I'm going to tell you something. Were it up to me, my favorite running back from the entire team is with the New York Jets now, Kyrie.
Kyrie Robinson?
But if it were me making the calls, I would desperately make an attempt to have Timmy brought back for next year. Hightower.
Okay, the artist.
He played inspired football at the end of the season and showed me more coming out of the backfield than any of the rest did the entire season.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Do you think you've improved enough along the offensive line at this point to make a big difference
That's going to be the thing moving forward. Like I said, you got a hell of a hole to fill there with Jari Evans gone. That's
right.
Pro Bowl caliber player that's not going to be there anymore, and you can't just throw anybody in that hole and fill that. But you do have some quality candidates to fill that hole in Pete moving into a starting role, and then you still have Lolito along with Teron Armstead and Zach Streif and the other guys, returning from last year. If they can come together and develop that cohesion that we were talking about earlier, I think that they can play well enough to give them a chance.
Is Max Unger, he still there?
Yes.
He could, this is going to be his second or third year.
Second.
I think you'll see something from him this year. I really believe that.
Well,
I really do.
To be honest, I was impressed with him last year, coming over from Seattle.
I think it's only going to get better because now he's got a year in the system.
Sure.
He's got, he knows some of the guys on the line. I think, you'll see a big difference. I like Unger. I'm a big fan. I think that was a great move for them.
I really do. I think that we won that trade all the way around. And people look at me like I'm an idiot when I say that. But look what happened for Graham last year, and look what we did with what we got from Graham.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got a starting middle linebacker to build our defense for the next decade, possibly around.
He's a player. I like him.
And you got a stalwart center to start building your offensive line around for at least the next 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you've got Unger, you've got Teron Armstead, which graded out, I think, is the 3rd best offensive lineman in the league by Pro Football Focus. I may be speaking out of turn with that, but
you're right. Though he is talented. He's good. He is talented. I want to ask one thing, kind of getting away from the players and the on the field stuff to the front office stuff. I know there's been a lot of turmoil and strife in the front office between ownership being mentally competent to be able to make decisions for the team versus, is it his daughter who wants to? What's the deal there? What's going on with the family?
As I understand it, at this point, the decision has been made. Now they may be the decision has been made in favor of Benson. And
Okay, Tom.
I'm sorry?
Is that right? The owner? Tom Benson, is that his name?
The dad.
Yeah,
they picked the old guy over the crazy bitches.
Yeah, pretty much. But his daughter was trying to get him declared not fit to run the company so that she could take ownership of it. There again, I haven't followed this completely, but as I understand it, that has been decided, and they ruled for Benson, and she may be appealing it, possibly.
Okay, probably, yeah. Probably. Okay, but I didn't know how much you knew.
To my understanding, it has been decided in his favor thus far.
And that only reason I brought that up is because that can serve as a distraction for a team with all this other stuff. Yeah, I didn't
you know what? Here's and Joey, I wouldn't be fit to own that team or even a damn 6-pack of beer if I lived in New Orleans. So really, I think you just have to kind of realize that if you're located in New Orleans, this type of shit is just going to surround your whole team for your whole existence because it's New Orleans.
Yeah.
I mean, is that you're not going to have some clean-cut dude. Everybody is having a good time there. And obviously, Jordan Cameron, Junior Gillette have way too good of a time there.
Yeah, well.
All right. We're gonna ask.
You got to give them something.
There you go. We got to get out of here, so we're going to do one last question so we don't just cut it off abruptly, and then we'll do our Ice Up picks. I don't know if you remember, Sean, but every week we do an Ice Up pick where we tell someone in the world, it doesn't matter who they are, where they are, or how old they are, to ice up, toughen up, to get their act together. So, Joey, my last question for Sean when it comes about the organization going forward just simply comes to this. Sean Payton and Drew Brees have seemed to be a combination. Is this that they come together, they live and die by that sword in so many ways? Do you see that the Saints are going to maybe just try to play somewhat of a season to where they can get the fan base involved next year and then start in 2017 with a total rebuild of whether it went from top to bottom, maybe even GM, head coach, and quarterback all in the same year?
I doubt that very seriously, and let me tell you why. The long big answer to your question will have a great deal to do with Brees' deal once it gets done. I anticipate it being maybe a 2 to 3 year extension. And people have asked me this over and over. I look for Peyton to be there as long as Brees is there, obviously. But at the same time, whenever Brees leaves, that is going to be the signal to the rest of the world that the complete overhaul has began.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if Peyton will be able to survive that without Brees.
Oh, and I don't think so.
I think that's a very insightful look, Sean.
You guys know as well as I do that when you start that complete overhaul, it's like it or not, one of the side effects of that is losing, and losing a lot.
Yeah.
And when you lose, then they start looking.
Take the blame.
Somebody's going to have to, yeah, exactly what you just said. Somebody's got to be blamed for that. And at this level, it's the coach. And I don't know that Sean Payton is going to, unless he's somehow got it within him to find a way to make a seamless transition into the next franchise quarterback that we mysteriously haven't seen yet.
It's not going to happen.
The answer is not on the roster. Your future quarterback is not on the roster.
It was always
anywhere in sight.
It was always my opinion that we needed to have the next franchise quarterback 2 years ago.
Yes.
And do the same Steve Young, Joe Montana thing. the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre thing, have that kind of deal worked out.
But didn't you guys try that last year with not Garofalo? That's the New England
Grayson.
guy.
Yeah, Grayson. Isn't that his name?
Grayson.
Yeah.
That was supposedly the deal. I was never completely convinced that this was the guy. I watched him play only sparingly, and by that a game or two maybe in college. Watched him play some in the preseason. Looked like a talented kid, but he never saw a snap last year. I don't think he was even active for a game.
Wow.
Now, moving forward into training camp this fall, we're going to see what he's got.
Well, you would think he would be learning from one of the greats. You know what I mean? If he sits and watches and imitates, mentally, he should be there.
It's got to be a huge vote of confidence for you, for a offensive-minded coach like Sean Payton to go into the press and say this is the only quarterback that we even looked at in the draft. That's got to be a bonus for you. But inevitably, you still got to get out on the field and prove that you're worthy of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay. Well, Joey, you got anything else? Do you got anything else to say? Because I think we need to go ahead and ice these mugs up and get on out of here for the night.
Yeah. No. I think Sean did a great job of letting us give him the third degree.
Yeah. It is. It'll be interesting to watch how the Saints progress, and it's going to be a tough transition when it comes to Drew Brees and the Sean Payton legacy. T-Money just mentioned that he sees Sean Payton going to a team with young talent and looking like a genius, and he's got that offensive mind. It's just so hard to win with offense alone, so you really need to be pairing yourself with guys that can balance that and take that responsibility off your plate. So I think that's what I'll be looking for with Sean Payton. So, but with no further ado, it is time to ice some mugs up tonight, and it looks like Sean is frozen. Either that, can you hear us, Sean?
He's moving.
I'm just listening, brother.
Okay, all right, cool. I thought looking like Ben Carson over there. Speaking of new could we just ice up Donald Trump every week, Joe? Him and Ted Cruz are throwing blows on Twitter as we speak about an ad right now. But this is the C3. This is the very first segment I think have introduced and stuck with Sean, and this goes back to when Steve Smith told Aqib Talib or Talib Aqib, whatever his name is.
Aqib Talib.
I just call him Talib Kweli, that's the only guy I know is the rapper. But he told him to ice up and to toughen up. So what we do is we call somebody out and we tell them to ice up. Joey, mine is like a somber one, so I do feel like I should go last, or else it's just gonna be a party pooper for everybody. So Joey, you got one for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up. For 2 weeks in a row now, I brought to you
They're putting ice on that knee.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. This is the final ice
installment.
Mr. Terry Bollea, I think is what his real name is. Mr. Hulk Hogan is what he's more known as. Was the unfortunate victim of a conspiracy that Bubba the Love Sponge and his wife is pretty attractive. She's a fairly attractive lady. They conspired to film Hulk Hogan and her having relations. Well, Hogan won. The original damages were for $115 million. But I saw that the jury ended up awarding him $25 million.
Oh, he didn't even get the 115?
No, the punitive damages were for 25. I think 115 would have shut down Gawker, it might be able to swing 25 million. Gawker was the company that published and put the video out there. So anyway, it's finally over. I can just see the CEO for Gawker sitting in the witness box, giving you the like I said last week, the blow by blow commentary of what was going on in the video. So anyway, Gawker, that was really pretty sleazy for you to do that. And I wish I could remember the CEO's name, but just as a whole, Gawker.
So was it all a setup?
Yes, it was a total setup.
From the very beginning, like with the whole newspaper part and all?
Well, I don't think the newspaper was in it, but I think Bubba filmed it and said, "Hey, look, I got this. You're the first guy."
Did he get in trouble? Did he get in trouble?
No.
I would sleep with her for $25 million.
Yeah. Of course you would. And you know what? Miranda would be pushing you from behind during the act.
She'd be cheering.
Yes.
Anybody's named the Love Sponge, dude. I'm pulling for this guy, Bubba the Love Sponge.
Yeah, he's a syndicated radio guy. He's like a shock jock, like a Howard Stern and them. And he's actually...
It sounds like a broke one now.
Well, it wasn't him that had to pay the money, but you know, I imagine he's lost. Well, with the name Love Sponge, you don't have a whole lot of credibility anyway, I don't think.
So, let me ask you this. Have you watched the tape, Joe?
No.
No?
I don't even know that it's possible to.
It's somewhere on the internet. It's got to be.
I like this one, but that's about too far for mine.
She's got a pretty big nose. Let's say that. I just wonder what that looks like. Perea and the Jewish lady in the sack. Got to be an epic. That's a pay-per-view draw right there.
That is. You're absolutely right.
All right, Sean. Ice up. Who is getting iced up?
I'm icing up Gawker.
Johnny Manziel.
Okay. All right, Sean. Who you got? Johnny. Get in there.
Grow up, ice up, son. You had the opportunity of a lifetime, and you peed on it. Show this game and this sport the respect that it demands and deserves, or take your toys and go home.
You could film a sex video with your girlfriend and get like $25 million. I mean,
and then you're done. That's it.
That's what I would do.
I did hear that there are some teams that are still interested in Manziel. They're just waiting to see what kind of disciplinary action the league is going to come down with.
The domestic violence thing is going to have him sidelined for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard how long, but
yeah, I think at least a year.
Yeah, I believe that's what.
I would think that at least a year, because it's more than one thing going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so ice up to
Johnny Football.
Mr. Money. All right, so we got Hulk Hogan, Johnny Manziel. On the internet, people are saying Sanu, who had as many touchdowns as Roddy White, 0 last year. And Panther Nation said that The Voice needs to ice up for his Super Bowl pick still. And that's calling out another Panther fan. For me, guys, I'm going to take this on a dark, somber, terrible road. And this goes, my ice up pick goes to ISIS. And you motherfuckers, let me just go ahead and say that, is I don't care who you are, what you believe in. I don't even got an interest in that. I hate Sean just as much as anybody, and because he's a Saints fan. But you know what I ain't going to go do is go to Mofo, New Orleans, and blow some shit up because we don't think you're cool.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the world right now has told you that you're a bunch of mofo idiots, and you look like it, you act like it. sound like, I mean, all of this today in Belgium, ISIS people went in there, senseless act of violence. It's not senseless. It's actually very well thought out and planned. And the idea is this. Really, what they want us all to do is have an anti-Muslim sentiment right now. Mm-hmm. So they're hoping that we run all over the world and punch them in their face out of an outrage, and then they can capitalize on that and bring all those moderate people that don't agree with their agenda into their folds because of our anger. Yeah. That is the whole strategy. Let me just say this. You're just upset that you don't got cool shit. This really is what it all comes down to. You are so freaking upset that you don't have Gold Bond and your ass is in the middle of the desert chafing. So it really is that. It's that simple. Get these mugs some air conditioning, get them some Gold Bond, and realize this: the regular world don't act like a bunch of idiots. And we solve our problems very simply through football.
That's right.
So, to you, ISIS, Ice Up, and a big, prayers go out to all the people that lost somebody in this event. America has gone through this. And how do you do this to the smallest country on the planet? Could you have picked a smaller country to mess with?
Right.
Really?
But pick on this little guy.
Howard.
Poor Belgium. I mean, the whole thing. So to you, ISIS, Ice Up.
Yeah, Ice Up, ISIS.
Yeah.
It's sickening.
It is. All right, this is the C3 podcast brought to you by Carolina Cat Chronicles. I think I got some Panthers ball for you. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. My name is Tony Dunn, a.k.a. The Professor. You can follow me at cat_chronicles. You can check us out every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. at carolinacatchronicles.com. We're on YouTube. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. Give us a share. Give us a like. Just send us a message. We'll interact with you. Sean, tell them where they can find your work and interact with you.
I am on profootballspot.com, and I'm on Facebook at Who Dat Nation Redemption, and I'm on Twitter at Drew's Dad 3721. Thank you guys so much for having me. I always enjoy hanging out with you.
We'll be back. We'll have you around. We always have a big draft show, and we'll have to check in with you then, where we have a big party where we get hammered and talk about every pick of the NFL draft as it happens. It's almost like our version of Mystery Science Theater from the Panthers' perspective, and we will bring you on right after the Saints pick and talk to you. Joey Riolano, you're looking better. You're sounding good. It's glad. I feel like you're finally back this week.
Well, I'm definitely feeling better. I'm getting my voice back, and I am. Hopefully next week we'll have something to talk about with the Panthers and some free agent moves. Hopefully, but next Tuesday. Don't forget. C3 Podcast will be back in action.
All right, that's it, guys, and we will check you out next Tuesday night.